Everybody out there in Radio Land and wherever you are listening to us. Here we are on People for People, .ning.com, all you people in the chat, welcome. And those listening wherever you are here in this great sacred Mother Earth. Yeah, this is Barbara Three Crow, and my sister Patty Walking Turtle is not available today, and we sure will miss her. But I have a guest, and I know you're familiar with my guest, Luca Majno, and I hope I said it correctly. I know we always
You,
ask.
you didn't.
I did not. Manjo.
No.
Manjo. Manjo.
Everybody wants to put the N before the J. It's Majno. It's
Majno.
Majno. Majno.
Majno. Okay, thank you so for that.
You.
And I'll get it as Majno, yeah. Anyway, Luca is with me today, which I'm really glad to have you back, Luca. And, you know, as I was saying before we came on live here, the kind of shows that I like is when we just sit down together and we just start talking, and that's where we're going to go today. I don't have anything particular in my mind or on my agenda here to bring in, specific that I think is ultra important. But I think, pretty much what we do bring to the shows, I do believe are important. But our conversations are heartfelt, and I always ask the people, to be present with us and have your heart spirit open. Always take what feels right for you, sings to your heart spirit. Yep, and leave the rest. So with that said, you and I, Luca, we were just kind of talking about some things that we're really excited about, and I think what we also are aware of, or becoming more and more aware of, about what's happening with people's awakening, and also some differences that we are aware of in the ways of the First Nations people, which the term First Nations people is, just to give you a heads up out there, is indigenous nations, or in this case, I guess you could say Native Americans or Indians. Now, these people, the First Nations people, have their preferences, and many of them prefer different titles. So, I like to use the First Nations or indigenous peoples. But there's something going on in our world today where I do feel that prophecies are unfolding, and one of the prophecies, and Luca, I'm not sure if you do know this, a prophecy that was given was that in the coming times, and I think we're in those coming times, that the people would be returning. There would be coming an awakening or a returning to the ways of the First Nations people. And I'm going to expand that, because that's your people out there, whoever you are. It doesn't matter your nationality, doesn't matter your heritage. Your people originally, and I'm talking about all over the earth, all over this Mother Earth, were First Nations people, or we could say Earth people. This was before organized religion. This was before, technology and industries and so on and so forth. This was when all of our people were living on the land, close to the land, and were in that arena of the, being one with and being alert and aware to the signs, not only just the signs on the earth, but the star signs and so on. So, yeah, so I'm going to say that that's, to all of you out there, you're all brothers and sisters of the first earth peoples. And that's why I say, Mitaku Yeo Yasin, we're all one family. And that's where we're going to go, and see where we go from there. Hi, Stefan. Hi, all you guys out there. Sting, everybody popping in here. It's really nice to see you. Crazy Fox, Chris, oh nice, Kenny, James, Angeline, May, yeah, good, welcome everybody. So welcome Luca, and it's so good to be here with you again. How you doing today?
Wow, that was a good mouthful. That was a good first mouthful of the food that we're going to be eating today. Yeah, it's good to be back on, and it's a real treat, because you're going to have a good show when the grandmothers say, we haven't prepared anything at all. We have no idea where we're going. And it's like, good, let's begin,
Right.
I'd like to say it too, in the Micmac, community, which is eastern northern Canada, New Brunswick, the provinces of New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and Prince Edward Island, and uh, quite a bit of Quebec also. The Mi'kmaq always say Msetnogama,
Right.
which is all my relations. It's the same thing.
It's
And
the same thing, yeah.
it's beautifully written and beautifully articulated, and it's so cool to be able to say it and to have learned it. And I think it's a matter of wanting to go back to source. I think nobody is going to just all of a sudden, be enlightened, because the world we're living in is so polar opposite to what the Native American belief system stands for. It's so polar opposite, and I think people that want to wake up are the ones that are going to be led to as much source as they can. Whatever they're willing to accept, whatever the sacrifice they want to make. You're not going to get anything if you don't sacrifice. Forget it, right? And the more pain you go through, the more you learn. And I think that's what it's all about. The more difficulties you learn, the hardships that you go through. You sit back and it's like, hang on a second. This isn't what we're supposed to be living, and that's what happened to me. And that's how I am where I'm at now. And after 4 years of being single and no significant other, it's like, wow, okay, I'm beginning to get to know myself. I'm beginning to understand who I am. I'm beginning to defend my own space, against those that I have to defend it from. And it's a new beginning. It's like being reborn again, pardon the pun. It's not organized religion born again. And people like George Orwell and Aldous Huxley, they warned us way back then. And
They were downloading, weren't they?
And they were also best friends.
I didn't know that.
Aldous Huxley and George Orwell were best friends. They went to the same school. We're talking the Fabian Society. And you look at the Fabian Society logo, and it's got a wolf in sheep's clothing. That's the actual logo. And that's where they learn about what the elite are doing. So no, George Orwell and Aldous Huxley, they're not prophetic. They can't. It's not about seeing the future. They were taught what the future is going to be and where this is going. So they just laid it out for us. Well, guess what? We're dumbed down. We're indoctrinated. We're socially engineered. We're drugged. We're brainwashed, and we're tricked into thinking the U.S. is a democracy, and it's not. It's a corporate oligarchy. So everything is on its head. And I think the more that goes on in life, the more people are going to wake up, and that's where it starts. It's a wake-up call, a big-time wake-up call.
Well, I think that it's significant timing, actually. I think, speaking about, you're talking about sacrifice, I look at it as not so much sacrifice as the challenges that we meet in our lives. So I haven't had a personal, relationship with someone in over 25 years. And I was in a different frame of mind prior to that, because that was before I woke up, I guess I'd say, or I'm going to say waking up is about healing yourself. That's a key piece for me. It's really about learning about yourself and loving yourself, learning to love yourself unconditionally, really, and accepting yourself as significant. So if you don't have that, you're sort of like looking for somebody else to fulfill you. Like somebody else has to take care of you, or somebody else has to give you certain things, or make your life better, or love you. If they don't love you, then you basically can't handle life. Somebody has to love me, okay? And we spend our time, our lives, our early life, I think, looking for that significant other from a place of an unhealed heart spirit. And that person you're looking for and hooking up with also has an unhealed heart spirit. and I spent a lot of time, in that arena of that before I was able to shift this. I'm going to call it the wound, the wound of the spirit,
Mm.
that begins in very early. And we're looking for love in all the wrong places because we didn't get the love and the cherishment that every child deserves to get, right? But we're talking generations here, Luca. This is the way I found is like, okay, generations of basically the societal ruling and controlling of the mind and the spirit of people. Crushing a child's spirit is part of the agenda, which means your original essence, which means your spirit, which means your joy, which means your natural creativity without fear or shame. Your essence, your sacred essence. And so that happened to my dad. That happened to my mom. It happened to my grandparents and so on. And I can see across the board in society that people suffered this. And it's sort of like we go around in life unfulfilled and believing that we're unlovable and we're seeking love because without love, how are we going to make it? We're told we must have this and we must have that. We must achieve this and we must fulfill that. But it's not really the something within ourself. It's not our true heart spirit speaking. It's the system telling us, right?
Yeah. And I thought it was so cool. I saw another post on Facebook that talked just about that too, about how you have this gaping hole inside you, and you got the gaping hole inside you, and you're reaching out to the exterior of yourself, trying to get anything you can to fill the hole up. I don't care if it's money or if it's possessions, materialistic possessions, or if it's the wrong people, or you're always trying to, until you stop and you go, wow, like I really do have this gaping hole here, and you start looking at yourself internally, and it changes your life completely. And that's what happened to me.
Well, you have to identify the fact that you're somehow you're not even a whole person, that there's something missing. And people may feel there's something missing, but they're basically told how to get the missing piece, which is outside oneself. It's the missing piece is perhaps a better job or a bigger car or more money or another person. But that's not how we do this. This is not the way we do come to become a whole person and a person who feels inner peace and who can be in that sacredness of the self, where you can make better decisions. Where you can actually identify another person, for instance, who is also in the same frequency that you are, and not desperate. I call it the hungry heart. People are desperate and hungry for somebody to fill them up, or something to fill them up. And you're never going to get anywhere. You're just going to keep spinning your wheels if you do that. So I came to a point in my life where as a single woman, I felt perfectly fine. I experienced something different. I didn't need another person to fill me, my spiritual foundation did that, but also the healing of my broken spirit was a major part of that. And I realized that there's a lot of wounded people out there, and we're all looking to them and asking them to heal us, to free us, and so on. And they're lost and chained themselves. So when you get to a point where you're not hungry for another person to fill you or fulfill you or give you whatever is missing, it's a beautiful place. I mean, it's an extraordinary place to be. And that is when you can actually find a person, if you were seeking that is in a better place, that it has gone through this healing and became a whole person, I just want to go back to your remark about Aldous Huxley and, who's the other guy there? The 1984 writer, that you said they were friends, right? Luca?
Yeah,
Hello?
George Orwell.
Yeah.
Yes.
So George Orwell and Aldous Huxley, you said were friends, and you said that they were taught what they were given. Now, I kind of like had a little blip when you said that too, and I think Stefan in the chat did as well. Yeah, Orwell. My question is, so I think throughout time there are certain persons who have been actually downloaded or channeled into stuff, um, you know, and have, bring out this information or in some way, share this information. And I don't know, who would you say, you said they were taught. Well, who taught them?
I think it's the ruling elite myself. I really
Well,
do.
that's what I was going to say. I wanted you to be more specific
Yes.
because we have found out, haven't we, that everything that has been written and movies and even cartoons and books and so on have basically given us information that then unfolds and becomes fact, right?
Yes.
I mean, so when you have this type of information, like from Aldous Huxley, for instance, taking that the Brave New World, and Orwell, of course, many of us say we're in the time, we're in that Orwellian time, and we are heading for the Brave New World. All things seem to be pointing that way. The technology, the mind control, the people the zombie apocalypse, and so we're looking at all of that, and we're saying, wow, like taking the certain movies, that actually show certain things, and then there they are, they're right in your face, they're unfolding. And we
Yeah.
have seen that this is a systematic, called the Clean Hands Act, right? Or the Clean Hands Doctrine, correct?
Yes, they have to do this. It's in their laws. They have to tell us what they're doing. Because if they don't, then they're going to be victim to their own whatever it is, their own downfall or whatever. I mean,
Well,
this is all
it's like a blood. Let's say it's a pact. It's like the
with the
Godfather.
devil. Yeah.
It's like the mob. They have a pact, okay? And they must do certain things, Like I was listening to some old mob guy on a interview the other night, and he was talking about his time in the mob and the things that went on. And he said, the movies show that we just our people are the mob people, and mobsters just randomly went out and killed people. He said that's not true. He said the mob bosses actually sat down and discussed this. It wasn't just random killing, This
Right.
was a decision and a determination because they had their guidelines and their rules.
And you
So,
know what? There's
yeah.
another movie made on that called The Star Chamber with Michael Douglas.
Oh,
The Star Chamber talks about that. It's the judges that get together and that talk about the absolutely perverse, ridiculous, horrible cases that are horribly exaggerated, and something has to be done, and they decide themselves
yeah,
in a undisclosed location what they're going to do, and they just carry it out. Yeah.
yeah,
See, so they're all, there's even that top of the police car. I remember with the number 9704 on it or something. And most people would just look at the top of a police car and the number, and somebody else just jumped on it knowing numerology, and he said, "Oh my God," he said, "that means this plus this equals this and this and that." It's all about numbers, and nobody listened to him. And
yeah,
you could tell that everything is exactly the way it's supposed to be. They leave certain things like shoes on the one shoe, I think it is, on
yeah.
the at the crime scene. There's all these little signatures that people are getting to know, and this is what they do. And if people don't understand that and don't get to be awakened about it, it's it's going to be the end times, really. I
Well,
mean,
I guess we're saying that the signs are there. You just need to look. They're right there in your face. We just need to know. We just need to look. Now, this thing about the clean hands doctrine, and I talked about this before. This was very fascinating. Patty and I found this link to this, like an Anons board, okay, where they having conversations, and this one of the Rothschilds set up a board to have conversations, and he put out first that this board was open to Anons, to ask him any question that they wanted about the Rothschilds, about the cabal, the elite, and he would respond to them. And we read this, we were there on there for a couple of hours. It was very fascinating. And one thing he did say, he said, we have to tell everybody, we have to tell the people what we are doing. He said, that's a law, that's our rule. He didn't go into the specifics of it, but he did say, and so there's why we talk about this, the clean hands doctrine, that some kind of I guess an unspoken rule or law that those who are going to, violate you or going to set up the end of whatever's have to disclose that. And that's what we see in the movies, and that's what we see in the books, and that's what we see on these programs, like these programs. I was watching this series called OA, okay, and I was blown away by it because in this series there is these young people who are playing this video. Well, it's not. I guess it's a video game. And you are invited to play this video game. Okay, you don't know who set this up, but you're offered money if you answer certain questions, and it brings you deeper and deeper and deeper into this mystery. You have to solve these problems, but guess what these kids are called? They're called Q kids. The Q kids got their noses stuck in their iPhones playing this game, this online game that is a puzzle. Okay, they're given clues, and they're brought deeper and deeper into this game, and they are basically, the reward is money, and that brings them deeper and deeper into this gaming system. But I was blown away by this term Q kids. And then at one point, so it's sort of like they get stuck in this, and they're mesmerized by this, and it's creating all types of various things, of course, in this particular timeline, in that frame in the movie. And it's also about out-of-body experiences and, the other worlds, the parallel realms, traveling out of body, time travel. It's interesting to me. And so I'm looking at that because, as we know, today we have the Anons and Q dropping information, leading the Anons into a deeper and deeper messages and discoveries of what is really going on in the bigger picture, and there's been a couple of drops about, well, Q was questioned by an Anon, are we alone? Meaning, is there anybody else from outer space here? Or are there people in outer space or beings? And Q said, we are not alone. Okay, so that was a big one, because Q is basically, supposedly, intelligence agencies or persons in that realm. And I do believe that our government knows, and they have known, and they have been in communication, and I do believe definitely that we are not alone. And so I'm just looking at this TV program that is sort of like emulating the Q phenomena here, where these young people are being pulled into this game. Of course, they're calling it a game, but they're this presenter of this game, is basically dropping clues, and these young people are locked into it, trying to find the clues and respond to it and go deeper and deeper. And that's what's happening. So we see this across the board. So when you say that Orwell and Aldous Huxley, and now there's also Chris Vlar says, like Albert Pike. I'm not too familiar with Albert Pike.
Albert Pike wrote a letter in the 1800s. Hello, Chris, and hello everybody in the chat as well. I'm glad to see you up. I didn't open the I didn't open up the what do you call it?
Chat.
Yeah, the page. I've got so much going here, so I just wanted to say hi to everybody in the chat. Just to answer Chris, this is it's a man who wrote a letter to I used to remember his name, but anyway, he in it he explains and details the 3 world wars that are going to happen. First World War will be fought.
When was this written?
1800s. I don't exactly remember when. And all you have to do is Google Albert Pike letter,
He's a Freemason, Chris says.
Oh, of course.
Well,
You
aren't
know?
they all, right?
Yeah, and there's something else too. We're talking about signs and having the elite tell us what's going on.
Yeah.
All you have to do is go down to Delbert County in Georgia, in the state of Georgia in the U.S., and there's something called the Georgia Guidestones
Yeah. Yep.
that tell you loud and clear the depopulation plan that they want, and everybody laughs at it. I've seen a couple get married under the Georgia Guidestones. That's how dumbed down we are.
Yeah.
I saved the picture and I found the person on Facebook that was either the photographer or somebody getting married or something, and I just, should I message the guy or not? And I said, nah, don't bother. Like, never mind.
Right.
This is how
Exactly.
dumbed down we are. And Orwell says that the 5 nightmares have come true. 1, we've been dumbed down by the public education system. 2, we've been indoctrinated by corporate-owned mass media. 3, we've been socially engineered by Hollywood movies, pop culture, music, and TV programming. 4, we've been drugged, brainwashed, and robbed by Big Pharma and the American healthcare racket. That's another good one. You want to talk about something I learned from Eustace Mullins? That'll be another one. The American healthcare racket. It's awesome. And number 5, he says we've been tricked into thinking the U.S. is a democracy, but it's not. It's a corporate oligarchy. But this is how people are falling prey to it. And a lot of people think it's because of the fluoride, because of what fluoride does and how long fluoridation has existed. So there's all kinds of reasons why we're just doing our job. And Rockefeller, that doesn't want thinkers, he wants workers. Everything points to the same thing. And when you're awake like that, it's really, really hard to communicate with people on the outside, because you just know so much more than they do, and they sit there and they talk about Republican and Democrat, and you're just shaking your head.
Well, they talk about the Kardashians,
Oh
or what
my God!
Megan, the Princess Megan is doing. I don't care what these people are doing, but this is the
Oh.
front page news, top news, top news. Hollywood, who's sleeping with who, and so on.
Look,
Uh,
look at the Bourne movies too. The Bourne Conspiracy and Bourne.
yes, yes,
The
yes.
Bourne movies show you exactly what the FBI, the CIA are doing and what they're like.
That's exactly right. You were right. And so why do we know that? And you have people watching these movies, loving these movies, and one after the other
Yeah.
is showing exactly the reality and the truth of where they're leading us or where we have been, and it's all factual. And
And
people,
I have to interrupt you here
go ahead.
because there's another half to that. Who thinks about checking out who's producing these movies?
That's the other thing.
Oh,
Exactly. And what they're
Arnon
involved in. Yeah.
Arnon Milchan. Arnon Milchan is ARNONMILCHAN. Arnon Milchan is in 1978. He was involved in making a movie called The Medusa Touch, where a 747 crashes into the Pan Am building in New York City. Hello, right? Arnon
Yeah.
Milchan is behind almost every movie like that, every violent movie, every grossed out movie you can think of, the horror stories and this and that. Most of them can be traced to Israel or Mossad or the like. It's
Well,
haunting.
wasn't it even in this on The Simpsons? One of the Simpsons shows had something about some plane crash in the was it the World Trade Center? I know there were old posters found with the exact picture of a plane crashing into two towers. I mean,
Uh,
there's been
yeah.
these types of things that have been showing us over and over again, and that's the Clean Hands Act that we're talking about. That the elite, the cabal, the controllers, whoever you want to call it, are controlled by something else very dark and evil. But they're letting us
Yes.
know right across the board that this is what's coming, folks. Wake up! But
I
nobody's
didn't
awake.
I didn't know. I didn't know, but I think it was in August 2001, a month before the Twin Towers got hit. CNN comes out with a primetime movie where a plane actually flies into a building.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
this is how dumbed down we are, and these people are just laughing at us all the time. So
Well,
this
it's like
is,
I have this vision around Black Friday I talked about this because that to me is an insane thing. But there you go, complete manipulation and controlling of the people. When people are camped out overnight, and maybe I don't know, maybe more than one night, 24 hours or 48 hours, camped outside of a store, a major department store, in their sleeping bags and whatever, camped outside, hundreds of people, and when the door opens at the prescribed time, they all rush in, killing each other, punching each other, kicking each other, spitting on each other, stepping over each other, knocking down each other for stuff. And I see this image of this, a big fat guy up in the, up on the in a room where he can look down and nobody can see him, but he can look out of this, one-way mirror, and with his fat cigar and all his gold rings and change and whatever, and he's just laughing his head off at the fools killing each other down there for plastic stuff. You know, that's what's going on. It's amazing to me how people are subjected to this manipulation and this brainwashing. And the other funny thing is, well, the people don't realize this, but prior to Black Friday, they basically raised the prices incrementally, for a little while, and then they dropped the prices to the usual level. So for Black Friday, so it's the same. They're charging the same price. Okay, it looks like it's a sale, folks, but it's not a sale. Anyway, that I just I just brought that in because it's like what's happening to people. What is happening? What we see happening to people? What we see people going to these blockbuster movies that are basically a message to, hello, this is what's coming. This is not a fantasy. This is real stuff. And we've seen it over and over again.
Barb, when we talk about these things, I have a real sense, a special sense for it because I'm looking at it from a different perspective. And Facebook has been one of the most powerful tools I've ever had as far as waking up. There's one post that I caught that's a quote from the Dalai Lama. Okay, well, you can believe what you want about him and think what you want. That's fine. It says, if every 8-year-old in the world is taught meditation, we will eliminate violence from the world within one generation. And I said to myself, that's exactly why they're not teaching it in school.
Right, exactly.
That's exactly why they're not doing anything about it, because they want us tearing each other apart. They want us on each other's throats. They want us to kill each other. They created the drug war. There's another post, with Nixon admitting it. It's like I think what's happening to most of the population is that the signs are so obvious for the people that don't want to do anything about it and that keep resisting, that it's just shutting them down. And the rest of the people are really, really starting to wake up and putting two and two together. And I'm watching more and more people come on my Facebook page and thank me for what I'm doing. And it's not necessarily true what I'm putting up there. It's just, this is what I came across, guys. This is what I came across, And I'm sharing as much as I can, and it's really working. My page is called Learn to Unlearn for a very good reason. So.
Well, Mermaid Mama, hi Mermaid Mama, she says, the Twin Towers were hit with planes on the symptoms. And Stefan says, and in Marvel Comics too, and Cookie Monster did a poster as well. I'm curious about the dates of these, if you guys can give us the dates of when these were actually put out, on the symptoms and the Marvel Comics and stuff like that. I'd be very curious to see how far ahead, how early did they give us this information? I'm just saying. Yeah.
Wow. And on the other hand, I don't want to change to politics, but I just want to say this. Every single day, I've been taking a picture of, either a post or something that says what Trump is doing. Trumping is allowing fracking wastewater dropped into the oceans. Trump is allowing EPA to loosen up their laws on something or other, whatever it was. Every single thing you see, right down to taking away the sovereignty of the Wampanoag tribe in the East that I think they got from Obama. He's doing everything backwards, everything to break us up, everything to to knock down our privacy, or our laws protecting ourselves, protecting the people. And then you find out that it's not about the people at all. It never has been. And for over 200 years, you have people ever since the time of Andrew Jackson saying that America is under this control of an evil entity that has taken over, and been in control of the U.S., I think, since the Civil War, when I found out that the Civil War was just a joke between two Rothschild brothers, one in the North and one in the South, and they engineered that conflict like they engineered every other conflict that we've lived in since then. And
Right.
the Palestinian-Israel conflict is the same thing, Indian
Wow.
land loss in the States. I end up repeating myself show after show because we keep going after the same subjects, and it's like, how many times can you say the same thing before people wake up? And I'm really proud to see, I remember the reaction in the chat when I had my own show, and it was like, wow, these people are more woken up than I am.
No, it's good to see that. But so the date was 1997. Okay, that the Simpsons had that on their show. Yeah, and that's what Mermaid Mama says. And Gaz says September 11th, 2001 was predicted in 1997. Yeah,
It was
yeah.
predicted in 1978. They've been working on it since 1978 or before in
Uh-huh.
Israel with Arnold Milcan and the gang. Oh yeah, and you look at what Netanyahu was saying about 9/11. It was the best thing that ever happened
Yeah,
for Israel.
exactly. So,
There's so many clues everywhere.
and on the page where Mermaid Mama got this information, it says that they make the insane argument, or inane argument, well, it is insane, that the Simpsons creators are just incredibly brilliant. Yeah, they are really brilliant. Just like Aldous Huxley and just like all these people. They are, listen, it's just like this is what we're looking at. Yeah, 1997. What? So, talking about numbers, okay, now you can do numbers, and everything that when we say they do, we mean the cabal or the elite or the controllers or those who are attempting to control us. Um,
Yes,
but we are waking up, and more people are realizing these things. So, but they do use the numbers, and they do use certain, words and terms which have power, but the numbers are so key. You could Google, okay, when the Notre Dame just recently burned, what happened during that time in the past, and
exactly.
you could see these numbers adding up. Why that date?
Mm.
Why this date? What was also sacrifice?
Sacrifices to Moloch.
That's
Yeah,
exactly right. Now,
sacrifices to Moloch, on April 19th, just like Waco, just like the Oklahoma City bombing, just like the USS. Which one was it? There's one that this is all. It's all done ahead of time, and it's been my friends on Facebook that have helped me awaken a lot more than my own posts. I think maybe 80% of the posts that I share are from everybody else. So it's been wonderful for me.
well, when you say let's just stop here. Let's just stop here about this sacrifice to Moloch, you're saying, because okay, I don't think maybe a lot of people know that, but we have done investigation on this, and I think it was last year that I realized that there is something very evil that is manipulating things here for a purpose, and to me, the purpose was to destroy what I call everything that is sacrosanct, which I call basically, this creation, and that
Uh-huh.
includes us. And so it's the creation, meaning the forest, the water, the food, the air, everything is in being attacked. And I'm thinking, okay, well, we have the Rothschilds, we have the Bilderbergs, we have the Rockefellers, we have all these people that people are blaming for this, and they are part of it for sure. They are actually doing the dirty work of the most evil, in my estimation, that wants to destroy everything that is sacrosanct, and that is including human life. And so my question, was, okay, what's behind this horror that we're all experiencing. It's not just the elite, the cabal, human people. If I don't think they're really human, but they sold their souls, is something very evil. And so this is what we're looking at. So Moloch is the word that you have used. Okay, now that is actually, these are real, this is factual, that there were blood sacrifices. Now I came to realize that war, for instance, we have realized that the wars have been basically created, out of, for their purpose. That
Engineered,
means,
yes.
engineers, these wars that we have experienced, not only the wars, but in our lifetime when we read about the horrors or violence or very horrible things happening to people on a scale that is mind-blowing, these are blood sacrifices. Like the towers, the Twin Towers, that was a blood sacrifice. What happened on the day that the Notre Dame burned down, okay, there was the massacre in Sri Lanka, okay, and you know that, right? The people that went into that hotel and blew themselves up and killed, I don't know how many people there, over 200 people. That was supposed to happen, that blood sacrifice was supposed to happen in Notre Dame, okay? But something shifted there. Supposedly, and I can't quite remember, the white hats supposedly shifted something there. And the fire, in fact, didn't kill people, but it energetically fulfilled this blood sacrifice because they took all the saints prior to the burning, all the saints. Do you know that all the saints were removed because they're renovating this church?
38, 38 statues were removed, yeah, in the weeks
But do you
before the
know
fire.
do you know that they were all beheaded?
Ah,
All
sounds
right.
right. Sounds right.
All the saints their heads were removed to transport them out of the church. And you have to say, why? Well, they said because they needed to know what was inside, the properties inside these statues, so they could determine how to better protect them. Now, so take off a finger. But no, every one of them were beheaded. And then what was left on that temple, that to me, a temple to Baal, okay, are the gargoyles, those demonic creatures that they put up on churches and buildings, okay? You've seen them.
Yeah.
They were all left on the church. So the fire raged, okay, in honoring as the sacrifice. Simultaneously, okay, was the bombing in Sri Lanka. That was the sacrifice. That's how this works. So you have the energy. We talk about the energy of fear, the energy of terror, the energy of violence, the energy of the murder of which is a blood sacrifice, the energy, the trauma blood. Okay, when a person is traumatized, victimized, sacrificed, there's shifts. There's an energy that shifts. There's a frequency shift within that person, within every cell, within the blood, and so on. Okay, and that is the frequency. That is the food for this Baal. Okay, for this Moloch you call. Same. It's really the same. It's
Yes.
evil. So what we're talking about here is ongoing sacrifices over millennia to something very dark and evil. And there are people here that we call the elites that are in pretty much a lot of the arenas that we are, the authoritarian arenas, I call them, what we're under, that are involved in this, right?
There's something too. There's again. I love talking about this because there are different levels of knowledge. You can't teach a baby that's crawling. You can't convince him to walk because he's not ready to walk yet. You can't convince somebody to believe 9/11 was done, by the Rothschilds. It was ordered by the Rothschilds. Israel carried it out with the complicity of the other nations. So you can't go walk down on ground zero and say that. In the same context, you can't expect people to dive down, into this hole and learn about Moloch and blood sacrifice and everything without fully understanding it first on the surface. And one of the surface events for me was the Oklahoma City bombing when I found out from
Yes.
from my own telephone when I was talking to the guy who was given the job to blow it up and who turned it down under moral reasons. For moral reasons, he told me about that picture of the firefighter holding the baby that went around the world. He explained to me why they put bombs in the daycare,
Right.
specifically in the daycare to maximize human trauma. Why did they use that Pulitzer Prize winning picture of the fireman holding the baby? Because it's exactly what you just said. It triggers emotional unrest and just incredible trauma and anxiety inside you, and the more the better for them. So that was one of the the key announcements. This is, can you imagine somebody doing something as horrible as that to that baby, and they're laughing? That's what we did. That's what we do. That's what we do every day. They
Well,
go to
this is not an easy subject, folks, when we're talking about this blood sacrifice. But frankly, if you do research, you will find out that there was blood sacrifice all along throughout ancient times, and it just went behind hidden doors, or underground, and it's still functioning because that evil is still present, and we see this ramping up. And I have noticed, within the last couple of years, shocking behavior of your ordinary Joe and Harry and Mary, like neighbors, whatever, down the street, and they suddenly do something that is mind-blowing, shocking, stunning. And that leads me to tell you that I received a prophecy several years ago that said that we will see the behavior of people so shocking and so stunning that it will be unimaginable. And I see this happening every day. If you look, I mean, and the things that people are doing to their own children and others' children, of course, but each other and animals, that is mind-blowing and shocking and stunning. And say, what is going on here? And then we have the people who are the school shooters or whatever. Several of them have said, and it's not just the school shooters who have said, I heard this voice in my head that said, kill, 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 or somebody says, well, I heard this voice that told me my daughter was possessed with a demon. And then you have the Pope twice within the last 2.5 years calling on more priests to learn the art of exorcism, because he says, yeah, evil is rising and the devil is more present. And one of the bishops says the devil is in the church. And I was like, yay, finally they got that. But I'm just, so we're talking about some pretty out there stuff, folks. But, we've seen these things.
It's all connected. It's all connected.
But the thing is, there's another side to this, which is awesome. Okay, there's another side that's all connected too. So you have, again, here we are in the battle of the dark and the light. This is historic. We've been doing this for how long? But we have this ongoing battle, the spiritual battle of the dark and the light. To me, it's like an amazing time, frankly. And this is prophecy speaking in this moment that we are living. We're just finding out a lot of this stuff, that what exactly this battle has been about and what it is about in present. It has never changed. It is still the battle of the dark and light, but we are becoming awake to it. You see, more and more and more people are waking up and saying, hey, something's way wrong here. Something's wrong in this political system. Something's wrong with our church. Something's wrong with the religious system. Something's wrong with the financial system. Something's wrong with the education system. And yes, you are correct. What is really wrong is that these were put in place specifically by dominator patriarchy rule, which is basically, eliminating a major part of creation, which is the sacred feminine,
Yes.
And of course, when you have boys and girls who are subjected to this assault upon their spirits, you have the crushing of a boy's spirit, you have the crushing of a girl's spirit, then you have the programming and the downloading of information of what they must become, how they must live, how they must act, how they must look at each other and see each other, how they must perform, and how they must become successful. This is what's going on, So we've all been subjected to that, but that's why I say this is an awesome time, because people are waking up and we are seeing these things and we are talking about it. And some of the stuff we talk about, it's not easy to say, there is evil and it does exist, and we've been duped and manipulated and been herded along incrementally towards something that if we don't really wake up and put on the brakes now and break these chains off of ourselves and actually come into, a heart spirit place, a compassionate place, then we're just going to be swept along in the tide, that's rolling rapidly and expanding. This is what's going on.
Okay, first of all, I want to thank you and Patty, because I didn't know anything in depth as much as I do now, thanks to both of you over the years. And I have to say that. I really have to give a shout out to both of you for being so open and daring to talk about the unspeakable. When you were talking about church and state, saying that they had to become this and the children had to become that, welcome to the Indian residential school.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is what you find. Any kind of abuse is tolerated. If the kid dies, just dig a shallow grave behind the school and no problem. This is how they did things.
Or if you murder a child, you see, this is the history of the indigenous people here on Turtle Island and the church and the government / church. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
This is what we know now, and this is a devastation on the people's original people of, as we say, we talked about original people here on Turtle Island, but it's not just here on Turtle Island, it's throughout the world you have this. So this, and now we say, you know what, folks, the original people, the indigenous people have been put on reservations. They have been violated and abused, and they pretty much were nearly, I guess you'd say, the whole nearly genocided, completely genocided. They experienced genocide. This is the legacy of the good old USA of this country, Turtle Island. It was a foundation of genocide. Colonization is genocide, consists of that. So we have that. We have slavery. We have, the genocide of nations of people. And this is a trauma upon the Mother Earth, and it's the whole of the earth, because indigenous people, and they're still fighting to survive, even the Brazilian indigenous people, the people, in Canada, the people all over the earth of indigenous people, even the ones in the Middle East are indigenous people, and they are also being genocided. So we have this going on. Because why? You have to ask yourself, why are the First Nations people the ones who are being genocided? Because they have something, because they know something, because they were they were given, as we all were, the original instructions. Black, red, yellow, and white nations were given the original instructions. That's why I say, you people out there, if you say your heritage is not indigenous or not native, maybe your people were European, so you might claim yourself, to be different, but you're not different, because your people were First Nations people, Earth people too. Before technology, before organized religions, all peoples on the earth lived close to the land. They had to in order to survive. And they all received the original instructions on how to live in harmony and balance, in this beautiful earth. So they maintain, the indigenous people maintain these ways. The first ones, according to the Hopi prophecies, and I do feel these are correct, the white race, and I hate that word race, let's say the white people lost their original instructions, okay? You have the indigenous people of the black nations, some of them, like for instance, we could say the Dogon, they still maintain their original instructions, okay? They have the ceremonies, they have the ways of the star peoples and the earth and so on. Then you have the red nations. We have the Hopi people, for instance, and the Kogi people, okay, and various other spattering here and there, like, for instance, the Haudenosaunee. They still maintain their original instructions, and we're gonna go into that in a little bit. With the clan mother system, with the balance of the male and the female, and the harmony of living in that way. And then you have the yellow nations. You have the Tibetan people and various other ancient cultures there. Those are indigenous people. They still maintain their ceremonies, and they still are working with the ceremonies, okay, to hold things in harmony and balance. And what happened to the others? The white nation, the white people, they lost it. They lost their way. They lost their original instructions. Okay, and that's where we are today. So why is it that they want to destroy First Nations people? Because they still hold the original instructions and the wisdoms on how to be in harmony and balance, how to treat this earth, how to treat each other. This is what they're fighting against, because we have that entity, evil, frequency, energy, ball, whatever you want to call it, that hates what is sacred. That's the battle of the dark and the light, the good and the evil. This is what we're talking about. So you say, why are they picking on the feminine, the sacred feminine? Because the feminine is the original holder of peacekeepers and givers of life.
Matriarchs are the greatest threat. Okay, yeah. I'm going to repeat that. Matriarchy is the greatest threat, and I know everybody in the chat must know that. But I mean, we're talking to people that don't really know and that are just beginning their journey. Also, I have a quote from Richard Pratt, CEO of the Carlisle Indian School or Carlisle Industrial School in Pennsylvania. But first, I want to talk about Peter Bryce. Dr. Peter, this is how they treat people back in 1907. This is how they treated whistleblowers, okay? Dr. Peter Bryce was one of the medical officers that would go into the residential schools of British Columbia, of Alberta, on the West Coast. And all of a sudden, he started noticing, hey, hang on a second, we have an annual death rate of the children of over 40%, reaching 66% per year. That's not, that's not normal, and it's definitely guided, or it's done by humans. Yeah. And the more he looked, the more he was told by his superiors to shut up. So he went to the Ottawa Citizen in 1907 in the newspaper, and you have this article coming out saying, that this is a national crime, which was the name of his book afterwards. And he was not allowed to work in his profession again. He was blackballed so bad that he couldn't work ever again. That's how bad it was.
Right. Listen, okay. You have more on that.
And because we're going up to the hour, to the top of the hour, and we have to take a break, I just want to read this just to get the chills going.
Okay.
In Indian civilization, I am a Baptist, because I believe in immersing the Indians in our civilization, and when we get them holding them down underwater until they're thoroughly soaked.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh, what's waterboarding? Early waterboarding.
There you go.
Concept. Okay, we're going to take a short break, a little after top of the hour here. We're going to take a short break, get your water, your coffee, whatever you need to do, and we'll be back shortly. We'll see you on the other side.
I'm sorry, but I don't want to be an emperor. That's not my business. I don't want to rule or conquer anyone. I should like to help everyone if possible. Jew, Gentile, black man, white. We all want to help one another. Human beings are like that. We want to live by each other's happiness, not by each other's misery. We don't want to hate and despise one another. In this world there's room for everyone, and the good earth is rich and can provide for everyone. The way of life can be free and beautiful, but we have lost the way. Greed has poisoned men's souls, has barricaded the world with hate, has goose-stepped us into misery and bloodshed. We have developed speed, but we have shut ourselves in. Machinery that gives abundance has left us in want. Our knowledge has made us cynical, our cleverness hard and unkind. We think too much and feel too little. More than machinery, we need humanity. More than cleverness, we need kindness and gentleness. Without these qualities, life will be violent, and all will be lost. The aeroplane and the radio have brought us closer together. The very nature of these inventions cries out for the goodness in men, cries out for universal brotherhood, for the unity of us all. Even now, my voice is reaching millions throughout the world. Millions of despairing men, women, and children, victims of a system that makes men torture and imprison innocent people. To those who can hear me, I say, do not despair. The misery that is now upon us is but the passing of greed, the bitterness of men who fear the way of human progress. The hate of men will pass, and dictators die, and the power they took from the people will return to the people. And so long as men die, liberty will never perish. Soldiers, don't give yourselves to brutes, men who despise you, enslave you, who regiment your lives. tell you what to do, what to think, and what to feel? Who drill you, diet you, treat you like cattle, use you as cannon fodder? Don't give yourselves to these unnatural men with machine minds and machine hearts. You are not machines. You are not cattle. You are men. You have the love of humanity in your hearts. You don't hate. Only the unloved hate. The unloved and the unnatural. Soldiers, don't fight for slavery. Fight for liberty. In the 17th chapter of St. Luke it is written, the kingdom of God is within man. Not one man nor a group of men, but in all men. In you. You, the people, have the power. The power to create machines. The power to create happiness. You, the people, have the power to make this life free and beautiful. To make this life a wonderful adventure. Then in the name of democracy, let us use that power. Let us all unite. Let us fight for a new world. A decent world. That will give men a chance to work, that will give youth a future and old age a security. By the promise of these things, brutes have risen to power, but they lie. They do not fulfill that promise. They never will. Dictators free themselves, but they enslave the people. Now let us fight to fulfill that promise. Let us fight to free the world, to do away with national barriers, to do away with greed, with hate and intolerance. Let us fight for a world of reason. A world where science and progress will lead to all men's happiness. Soldiers, in the name of democracy, let us all unite!
Oh my God!
We're
Yes.
back and we're carried away here. We're on a roll. We're passionate here about what we're talking about, and it's wonderful to see everybody's input in the chat. Thank you, everybody. Of course. Yeah. So you were just saying about there is a CIA. There's a faction in our government, and I think in every government. I think we're learning this, that is not so good. I mean, we have people that are good people, but we also have the other side in certain systems, like the CIA, the FBI, the D or whatever, the DOA, the CDC. We have a lot of these, and there's not so good people in some of these, right?
Every single one of those entities you can think of, Department of Homeland Security, FBI, CIA, anyone you can think of had to do with 9/11. They were all in agreement on 9/11. And for anybody interested, Christopher Bolin, he was already on my show once, Bollyn. Just go to bolin.com, Bollyn. He'll talk about, he loves talking about it. He was going to do another show with me again. This is what they do. And as far as I'm concerned, the CIA, by their own admission, they set out to do over 80 coups d'etats, rigging elections, frauds, takeovers across the world. And the FBI, as Julian Assange says, he says that most terror plots, like the false flags we've been going through, are created by the FBI as a part of their business model.
And they're also controlling the, is it the NSA, too, and also the media. So this is what we're looking at, and so let's shift the focus here and get back to the First Nations people, Luca. Let's let's talk about. I mean, I have felt this is very real. Now, I'm not saying. Listen, what happened to the indigenous people here on Turtle Island, I think, and we see it happen to everywhere. They have been basically experienced genocide, alcoholism, and drugs, and so on. When you have when you have a government that comes to your little um community and takes your 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old, 10-year-old child away, right out from under your nose, and your mom's there, your dad, your grandma's, grandpa's, and aunties, everybody's there, and you just disappear out of their lives, and you are carted off sometimes for miles and miles and traveling, by the way, on trains, because I read stories of some of the indigenous peoples telling what happened to them. Some of them never saw their people again. Some of them never went back home. Some of them didn't make it back home, and they lost their language. Immediately, the indoctrination was to punish you if you spoke your own language. Imagine that. Everything was taken from you that would remind you of your home, your people, okay? Your hair was cut off because the hair is a very significant and sacred element of a body. You know, had a lot of meaning to the indigenous peoples all over the world. Hair is an energy. Our hair has a frequency and an energy, but it signifies many, many things. And your hair was cut, and you were doused with, lice powder.
DT.
DDT.
Yeah.
DDT. You were doused with that, and you were put in barracks, given a dress or a little suit or pants or whatever, a shirt. All of your part of you, your whole self, was basically ripped up right there in front of you within days, gone. And you were punished if you spoke your own language. You didn't know English, but how do you talk? You had to learn the English. These people, these children were enslaved, by the way. Basically, they were put to work, and they were enslaved, and they wanted to kill the Indian, bring them into the civilization, what they call it, because these were heathens. This is the thinking of manifest destiny, and so these people, you have generations that were really emotionally scarred. And so then you have those generations bringing up their children, through that emotional scarring, the destruction of their nature, their true nature. And that generation that is brought up, years later, they are destroyed themselves. They don't know their language. They don't know their traditions, okay? Plus, they're starting with the alcohol and the drugs. So we have numerous generations here where we are today. We have the people trying to find their way back home. And it is not easy because there's a lot of violence now on the reservation. There is rape, there is murder, there is violence, there are suicides. In a lot of the reservations, there's a high poverty, percentage of high poverty there, and high suicides on the reservation. So you have nations here that were incrementally, deliberately meant to be destroyed. And they did a good job, but you have the people struggling and fighting, and some of them are being successful at that. This is something, that is a legacy of shame and horror in this country here and really all over the world. But now we have just your ordinary people out here, all the people here. We say we're all on the res. Okay, we are all on the res, not just the First Nations people. We're all living on the res because we're all controlled too. We're all controlled through the media, through education. We've been basically dumbed down and told that we must aspire to this, to become that, and so on. So back to the original people, what I'm saying here is that there are original people, the First Nations people, who are not good. They're not doing good. Some of them have been completely taken over and not even remembering their original instruction and promise of stewardship of the earth and of the children, the coming generations. Now you have, what we have is the gaming coming in, the casinos, which I think is an atrocity. Right? Then you have the blood quantum issue brought in deliberately, again, to kill the nations, right? What do you think on that?
I want to go back and give Sun Elk some honor.
Okay.
Because this is a real tragic story. I mean, you think going to the residential schools is bad, and what you just heard Barbara, talk about, you think that's bad. Well, how about, okay, one day the residential school closes, right? And they kicked them out. Where the hell are they going to go? Okay, so it was a warm summer night when the train arrived in Tahoe Station. I could no longer speak my language, so I'm paraphrasing this because I learned it by heart. I told the nearest pueblo to go to my family and tell him that I was home. The next morning, 2 war chiefs come in to see my father in our home and look at me, and then they didn't even look at me afterwards. Saying to the father, your son Raphael, who's lived far away, does not know anything about, his native culture. He has a new name. He has no hair. He is not one of us.
Yeah.
So you rip them away from their family for a good 25 years or more. You close these prisons, and then they're out on their own. I mean, how devastating can you get? It was something I just had to share, because it's all these little things that add up in your memory, and you can store it somewhere in your mind, and you can come back and get it when you need it. And it's time to connect the dots. It really is. We know so much. We can't be silent anymore.
Well, this story that you just told is the continuation of what happened, because you have those returning that did make it back. Okay, then you also have, during the colonization period, when many of the First Nations people were so basically pretty much forced to choose a religion. So Christianity, many of them became Christians, many of them became Methodists or Protestants, and they're living on the reservation. And so then you have the traditionals, like my teacher Wallace Black Elk, and many that I do know. They maintained the tradition of their ancestors, okay? They maintained it through the ceremonies and the way of life. They're living side by side on the reservation, so how do you fit? You don't fit at all, by the way. And you have the hatred and the violence from the Christian factions against the heathen factions. That's what they're called by the Christians, that these are devil worshippers and heathens. So the continuation of genocide on many levels is ever present, and this is what we're talking about. So if they didn't kill the child in the schools, which, by the way, there are factual stories coming out now up in Canada especially, about the genocide, the literally murdering of children, Indian children, and the burials that they are uncovering. Same thing in Ireland. You're talking about the Christian church, okay, children's missing, okay, and the pregnancies happening there through the priests pregnating the nuns and pregnating the children. Go.
The Magdalene laundries?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Yep. And
it's
worse.
Everywhere. It's everywhere. It's mostly indigenous people. And then you see, if anybody saw the movie Black Sunday, what the British do to Scotland and to Ireland. It's like,
yeah,
this is what they do to indigenous people, and it's come to the point where they don't have you don't color's not an issue anymore. It's everybody. Like the Georgia Guidestones say, they're going to reduce the population to 500 million, which is over 90% of the people that they're planning to destroy. And Chris Flower and I have talked about this quite a bit on our show, and it's just you end up saying the same things over and over again because they're so important.
It's kind of mind-boggling to imagine these things happening. But I'm going to go back to the numbers, the gematria numbers here. Mermaid Mama, thank you. She says Simpson's 9/11 prediction was 5/2/1997. That's the date they predicted. That equates to EBAIIG, which is the gematria of that is 33, which is a very significant number as it is the highest degree in Masons. It matches for 33 in simple gematria. ICU magic, ATL, double ATL to match the double 3. A lattice is a spear thrower, or a lattice is a tool that gives leverage to achieve greater velocity in dart throwing and includes a bearing surface which allows the user to store energy during the throw. It may consist of a shaft with a cup or a spur at the end that supports and propels the butt of the dart. So we're talking about the power of these numbers that are used, the dates that are used by the elite, the cabal, to perpetrate blood sacrifice, basically sacrifice, that really have a power and a meaning. And when you start looking at the dates and of things throughout the world that have happened and the numbers and do the gematria, it's pretty stunning, because everything that has occurred in our history is linked. And it's, you say there are no coinkydinks after you start looking at this stuff. It's linked to powerful numbers. And this, they knew all this. This is ancient wisdom. They knew it, and they've been using it against us, and they've been impacting us through these frequencies, these powers of events that create, what is going on, emotionally, physically, and spiritually throughout the whole of this creation. That's what's going on.
And a mouthful it is.
Yeah. So that's simple gematria. Basically here it's, since it was led by Mossad, okay, here the Jewish...
there you go. Zionist.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the other thing that you were talking earlier we were talking about Aldous Huxley and, and 84 and so on, what's unfolding exactly in our faces now. But everything that they said was going to happen, you can read that in the Zionists, the elders...
of Zion. Yep.
Protocols of Zion. Protocols of Zion. You can go down that list and you can read where we are today, the successes that they have incrementally moved us into, affected us, and brainwashed us, and systematically controlled the whole circumstance. This really, to me, it's absolutely brilliant. It is brilliant, but it is downright dark and evil to do this, to use these powers, these ancient knowledges of numbers, sacred numbers, geometries, and so on, against us, against what is divine, what is sacred, us, the people, and the Mother Earth, and our children especially. Yeah.
There's not one protocol in that list that they're not doing today. There's not one.
No,
there's not one. You look at every single one of them, from the breakup of the family to the confusion of the sexes,
the alcoholism, the drug.
It's unbelievable. This LGBT movement, that, you have 9 or 10-year-old kids that are confused about their sex. Mom, what am I, a boy or a girl? This never happened before. It's so obvious to the people that are waking up,
Well, I'm just taking a nice sip of water here because I want to get back to the focus on what the First Nations people originally knew and how they lived their lives. And
it's a really good idea, Barb, because what we're doing is we're talking about the dark, and what I love doing is talking about the dark and then listening to an Aboriginal or a First Nations prayer. They're polar opposite.
Exactly.
Polar opposite.
So why don't you do that right now? Why don't you, Luca's, and I have heard this prayer, and often in our own way, in our nation, we pray in the same manner, and I think it's across the board. All nations in the indigenous family identify everything that they are grateful for, and they name everything, and they give thanks and gratitude and identify that. And so Luca's going to read this prayer, Haudenosaunee prayer.
Yes, it's a greeting. It's a greeting.
Yeah.
And it's too long to read, so I'm going to paraphrase it. And it's really beautiful. When the Haudenosaunee meet, whether it's a large gathering or a small gathering, okay, Haudenosaunee, I'm sorry, they're part of the Six Nations.
Yes.
Which is New York territory today. What they do when they get together, they have several greetings, and it's very apropos that he tells this greeting. He says that it begins with the people. When we meet, and these are called the words before all words. We give these greetings. We're very grateful and happy to see you healthy and gathered here. Thank you for being well. That's one of Lyon's. He always says that. Thank you for being well. Once you thank everybody for being there and you recognize everybody, you move to Mother Earth. And you say, this is our mother, and we give a great thanksgiving, he says. I like that. For our mother, for her love, because it's what a mother does. She loves her children, and it's thanks to her she helps us survive, and she gives us life, and it keeps going. And then we move to everything that grows on the earth, from the grasses to the medicines to the bushes. Not trees. The family bushes, but the bushes, the trees, and the tundra. We put our mind around the world, and we try to see all these places that we give a thanksgiving for, and all the growing things on the earth. Then we move to the trees, our grandfathers. It's funny, the Haida of the west coast of Canada, they call the trees their sisters. Yeah. It's interesting that he should say that the grandfathers. I was so pleased that we came under the shade of the shelter of these powerful elders that surround us here. They are our relations. Look at how you gather under their shade and you keep cool. And he just goes on. And then he says, then we move on to everything that moves and runs in the forest with four legs.
Right.
We think of them and how they sustain us and how they're related to us and how we depend on them. And he's a wolf, by the way. He's from the wolf clan.
Right.
Then we move to what lives in the trees and what flies above, all the birds, how powerful they are. And the song of a wren could lift our hearts when we're sad. And, as small as the hummingbirds, we thank them for everything that they give us. And then we move to the waters of the earth.
Right.
From the springs to the seas to the rivers, very briefly. And then we move on to the thundering voices, the great powers and the great authority and the great strength that keep us alive, and they speak to us if we listen. And then he talks to the four winds, and I wanted to ask you about this. He says, this is a quote, and then we talk to the winds. He says, there are four of them. He says, this is a breeze here and a very, very slight, but you can feel the wind around you, and these winds are very powerful. He talks about the crops that he thanks. We call the corn, the beans, and the squash the three sisters of Mother Earth. And he goes on to talk about the elder brother, the sun, how you take a moment to thank the sun. There are people that would, that would pray to the sun, that adored the sun in the southeast. Then he moves to the grandmother moon, and he does the same thing, and then he moves to the stars.
Yeah.
And then he moves on to the spiritual people, the spiritual beings that look after us. And then to our messenger, to Creator, the giver of life, to end it all. So it's a beautiful prayer, and it's part of a long ceremony. And then he jokes about how long it took afterwards. And he says, he said it took a long time, but this is what's important to us. And that's every day that they do that. And thank you for letting me say that.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. I mean, it's very familiar. The same type of prayers that we pray the same way, and we have everything we do. We have that prayer when we meet in a circle before ceremonies and gatherings and so on. It's really based on the same. What it is about is identifying ourselves as part of the great circle, or the great the sacred hoop and the medicine wheel of life, meaning that we are all connected. And when you speak this way, you identify yourself as a relation to what we call the standing ones. Now, it's interesting because in my understanding, I know that there are female trees and male trees, okay? And so it depends. You have to determine which one is the female tree, which one is the male tree. Now, we have a cedar tree, cedar medicine plant. The medicine of the cedar here in the woodland, the eastern or northeastern peoples, is very significant. It's a medicine, one of our important medicines. We use it in ceremony. It's also made as a tea, and so on. Now, the one we have out here on our land is a grandmother. She's the grandmother cedar, and when I'm going to take something from her for the medicine, I offer her tobacco first, which is another sacred plant, by the way. And we never take anything without offering and requesting the medicine from that. That's part of our relationship, making relationship. Strengthen your relationship with the spiritual realm, with nature, with the mother, with the great spirit creator. Your relationship, see, this is what this is. It's being aware that you are one with this creation. That's how we identify ourselves. I am a child, a sacred child, you know. You're the grandmother tree, the medicine tree. I need your medicine today, and I make an offering. Same thing when you go to any of the other medicines. But we say the grandfather sun and grandmother moon, okay? And every morning in some of the indigenous cultures, before the sun came up, many go out and pray in welcoming the grandfather sun, the light of the sun, the warmth of the sun, the nurturance of the sun, which I call the wonia, the breath of life, okay? The breath of life is in many areas, like when you go into the lodge, the Inipi, which I know you have been. When we pour the water, the Miniwichoni, the sacred water upon the grandfathers, by the way, which are stone people, but they're specific stones. Not any stone is called the grandfather. These are specific, they're made up of specific properties, elements that you can pour water, cold water on them after you've had them in the sacred fire. And when they give off the steam, that's the wonia, the breath of life. It's healing, but also it carries our prayers. So, you know, we pray to all the elements, the same thing, but we pray to the creeper crawlers, those that live inside the mother. Also, those that walk upon the mother on all fours, those that creep along, okay, the winged ones, the four-leggeds, those known to us and those unknown to us, okay, you know, the invisible ones, and into the four quarters, the winds of the four quarters, every quarter, or four directions you can call it. Four quarters means west, north, east, and south. And this is the hoop, the sacred hoop, but it's infinite, into infinity. So there are many sacred beings, many ancestors that are in the four quarters in different places. Each one of those four directions have a different wind, a different voice, a different song, a different sound, a different energy, a different medicine, okay, unique to those four quarters. So when I pray to the west, I know some of the beings. We don't know all of them that are in the west. The Wakians, the thunder beings, are always come from the west. When we have storms, they move in from the west, okay, and the Wakians bring the rains for us. And so the rain is a different element, the spirit of the rain, but the Wakians, you know, have that power. So, and then there is the Iktomi, the grandmother spider, who lives in the west. And there are others, there are ancestors, there are elemental beings that we don't know fully who's in the west, who's in the north, but it's into infinity. And all of these partake in life. And when we call on them to help us or to intervene, to bring light or to bring harmony and balance, this is how we speak to them, you know. And so this is part of the medicine wheel of life, or the great web of life. So we pray to all these beings and elementals by identifying ourselves as I am related. When I speak to them, I say who I am. Hoichichilo tunkahotawian. I say, it is me, your daughter, gray stone woman. So they know, you know, that I'm honoring them by it's like when you meet an elder, you say, you know, I'm so-and-so, right? You just don't start talking to them. You're respectful to them, right? So it's the same way. When we speak to the ancestors or the elementals, we identify ourselves. I am this child here on this earth. Oichichilo tunkahotawian. It is me, your sacred child, tunkahotawian, gray stone woman. And this is a relationship, you see. The key piece here that I keep saying is relationship. What is your relationship to the Mother Earth, yes, who gives life, who feeds us and never stops. She's never going to stop feeding us. She's never going to stop her best. She's doing her best to hold herself alive and in harmony and health and well-being against all the assaults, against all the explosions, against everything. She comes up with new stuff. You know, she just keeps giving and giving. That's the mother, right? That's our sacred mother. And so what's your relationship? You see, in the way of the First Nations people, they had relationship with all of creation, and they received because they had this relationship and they humbled themselves before the great spirit and the great sacred mother and so on. They humbled themselves. They were not arrogant. They were humble people, powerful but humble, but they had relationship and they received. When you have a relationship and you give from your heart spirit, even with another person, you receive tenfold. You can be healed from the Mother Earth if you spend time and make a relationship with her. So this is what I talk about. The key piece here is our relationship at this timeline with the Great Spirit, the Creator, and all of the ancestors and the elementals that are there, waiting for us to reach out to them and asking for their help in harmony and balance, and recreating this original gift, the hoop, to mend the sacred hoop and to feed the tree of life. We're all part of that. So it's like you do have a relationship, but you're not aware of it. So therefore you're missing out on a lot. The relationship is so key to the First Nations people. Relationship from your heart spirit, to know you're not alone, that you are one with everything. That's what we're talking about.
Beautiful. I hope, Barb. That's great. It's beautiful. It's kind of hard to talk about after a beautiful talk like that one. But you hit on something that I really, really appreciate. Never take more than you need.
Yeah.
And that made me think of how beautiful it is when, I was taught when you go see the elder, you don't walk in empty-handed.
Yeah.
Bring tobacco. That's one of the things that'll really warm his heart or her heart. And if you know about tradition, you make a little pouch, red pouch of tobacco, and you take time and you pray and you think about what you want, and you never go to somebody and ask them something without giving them something first. That's the whole idea. You have to show respect to the other person. You tell them, I respect you so much, here. And the other person automatically says, oh, thank you. What can I do for you?
Well, it's like, it's definitely respect of an elder, but you have to make the point of, okay, in our tradition, tobacco is sacred. It's a sacred plant, mm-hmm. and it's not corrupted like your cigarettes are corrupted.
No.
So we're talking sacred tobacco as a sacred medicine, and it was a medicine, actually. It is a medicine. People have used it for boils. I mean, there's a whole list of things that Indian people use their tobacco for.
Red willow.
Well, yeah,
red willow is the first.
Well, red willow is not tobacco, hon.
No, I know, but it was the first tobacco that they used in some places.
Yes.
So that's important.
We still use the red willow. We use the red willow in the chinampa. That's what we put in the. We don't put tobacco. Now there are some indigenous peoples, tribes who do use. Plus they use different other herbs. So there's a combination. Depends on your teachings. Okay.
Yes.
So this whole thing about when you come to an elder, that elder won't give you information. You have to come with an offering of that sacred tobacco, but that elder will say, well, what are you here for? But you always bring something. You can bring a bag of groceries plus the tobacco, and it depends on what you're really seeking, but the wisdom from these elders, for instance, doesn't come easy. They want to really know your sincerity and your humbleness,
Yeah, like in the movie Thunderheart, he can read you like last week's paper, Cola. Because they really can. They know your intent, and that's the most important thing is intention.
And they will test you. They will tease you, and I'll tell you, talk about the humor of the Indian people can be very cutting and very harsh if you're not used to and familiar with that type of humor. They'll put you to the test with the humor. When you have a bunch of elders sitting there and you're there, you come up to the elders and you're hanging out with them and sitting there, and they start joking, and the joke is on you, and they're all laughing and sniggering, and you're sitting there, you have to deal with it. You have to figure out, okay, don't take this personally. joke along with them or just be humble about this because they're testing you, and they want to know how you're going to deal with the real stuff here. Who are you, first of all, and how you're going to hold up to this challenge we're going to throw at you right now. If you come to an elder, trust me, be prepared. They're going to really, if you're asking for help, you better really mean it. You better really mean you want help. They will put you to the test.
See, this is something else that I really love about spirituality, because true spirituality protects itself that way. I don't know how many times I've said that too on the shows. True spirituality protects itself from people that don't that want to trash it. It seems, because there's always little things that people who've lived a long life, they know, and you can't fake for too long. So there's I think there's definitely a force at work to protect what's sacred, even though we might not be aware of it, or a lot of us.
Well, they're trying to protect their sacred way, and this has been unfortunate, that there have been people who have taken privilege and have been utilizing the sacred ceremonies, our sacred ceremonies, basically, wrongly, because they have not been trained. And the training is really key. I mean, if you want to go operate a big machine, you better get training to know before you tip it over or crash it or whatever. It's the same thing. You have to know what you are dealing with here. So it is a training. It is a long training. It doesn't come easy, and it takes many years oftentimes to really know this way. But there are some people who are arrogant and some people who are greedy and who are taking the ways of the First Nations people and doing harm. They're really hurting people.
Don't get me started, Barb. Don't get me started. We don't have that long.
That's why we're here. We're here to talk about the stuff, what's going on, and and this is a big trouble. This is a problem, and I have seen people who are disrespecting these ways get hurt. And I've heard stories from my teacher, Wallace Black Elk, about people who have disrespected these ways and disrespected Chanumpa Wakan, which is an unknown power, and a power indeed, have harm come to them because they disrespected these ways. Because you're dealing with spirits here. You're dealing with ancient ones. You're dealing with this stuff. You don't mess around with this stuff.
Yeah. And there are people from the Native American world, from Indian country, that are acting like the best Wasishu or the best white people that are just I call them apples. A lot of people call them apples. They're red on the outside but white on the inside. In other words, they're out there for the glory. They're doing it for the ego. They say the most beautiful things in public, and everybody melts everybody's heart. And when they're alone with their woman, they disgrace her.
Yeah.
I've seen it with my own eyes, and I've heard it with my own ears. And there are people that are. How can people sit there and wonder why the world is sick when most of the wrong people have all the most powerful tools? This is the case with the Chanumpa Wakan that Barb is talking about. There are people that are in possession of deeply, deeply sacred items, and one has them in his garage, another person doesn't open it up, another one cheats on his wife. This is what they do, and this is what the oppressor has taught them to do. And that's why we have so much disruption, because the Native Americans are losing their power. They're not challenged. They're not channeled in the right direction anymore. They're corrupted so easily, like they were all the way through time. All you have to do is tell them how much money they're going to make. And this is adding on to the fight. It's adding on to the complications. Thanks, Barb.
Well, it's not just the sacred, when you have sacred implements or sacred items, okay, it's the spirit that comes along with those. It's the ancestors and the connectedness to spirits, plus, plural, with these items, specifically the Chanumpa Wakan, which is the sacred pipe given to our nation, the Lakota people, Dakota Nakota people, by the White Buffalo Calf Pipe woman, who came as a spirit, to teach the people, and I'm going to say it, pretty much the same things that Yeshua spoke of, about,
Yes.
it's the same thing. And the peacemaker spoke about who came prior to Yeshua, and Viracocha who came, and to the people in Peru, spoke the same words. And, so the power of this Chinimpa can be used to either for good or to harm. And so a person who is asked by an elder or guided by an elder to carry this Chinimpa Wakan, this doesn't happen randomly. Nobody in their right mind would actually say, oh, I think I'm going to carry this sacred pipe, because you have no idea what this entails, and it is a huge responsibility. It is a matter really of life and death and health and well-being and sickness. So if you are not, it's sort of like you have to be pure of heart and spirit, heart, mind, and spirit. And because what goes through you goes through the power of that Chinimpa Wakan. See? And so if you are corrupted, or if you are greedy, or if you are an alcoholic or a drug addict or whatever it is, or a violator of the feminine, that power goes out and affects all, starting with your own family, your daughter, your wife, your brother, your this, your that, your immediate family, and spins out into the realms, out throughout the web, and eventually makes its way back to you. What goes round comes round. You cannot get away from it, and it will be generations that this affects. This is the power of this. This is what I have been told by my elder. And so, and it can heal. I have seen people healed with these ceremonies, through that powerful, the unknown power of the Chinimpa Wakan. But we are the Chinimpa. We all have a power. We all have the power of word, of acts, of beliefs, of emotions, and so on. And every one of us is a power. And what begins with us, goes out, comes back around, and hits us one way or the other, whether it's positive or negative. So we all carry a power. We are all part of this. And, this is the wake-up call here today that we're talking about, is the power that the opposite, the opposing factor, the dark has had over us with their numbers, with their frequencies, with their word, and so on, has affected us in a negative way. We also have a power to affect things in a positive way. But you must know this power. You must become this power, which is basically, the heart spirit within you, the light within you, the relationship that you have with the source. Okay, and I don't care what you call that source, we're not going to get into that issue. It does not matter. It's something far greater than you. It is omniscient. It's that divine frequency of unconditional love and joy and compassion. That's a frequency. If you can come into that and become that, your whole life will change. But not only that, you are affecting the whole. You see, it's not just about you. It's not about me. I don't pray for myself. I'm grateful when people pray for me. It's when I'm in real trouble and I will say, I need your help, to Gosh, the Great Spirit. I have said that, but it's not often. But I pray for people. I pray for everyone, all children of the earth, every single human being, and all the creatures, all the Creator, what Creator put here. The tree people, the water nations, the sky people, the cloud people. Okay, Grandfather Sun, the moon, the Wikchopioyate, the star people who are our allies. I connect with them and I pray for all things to be in harmony and balance. I pray for every person. I don't say, oh, I'm not praying for that person because they're doing bad things. I'm not a judge. I'm here just to pray. I'm not a person put here on this earth to judge others and to hate others and to, diss others and to be mean and cruel. I'm not put here for that. That's not why I'm here. That's why none of you are here for that either. But we've been tricked. We've been tricked. And we have been controlled to do those things. We, the people, just, these good people out here, who want the same thing. You want peace. You want good, healthy food. You want your children to be healthy and safe. You want them to have a good life. You're not a mean, cruel person. You're not a hateful person. If you were subjected to that from the beginning, you're indoctrinated into becoming a hateful, nasty, unkind, cruel person. That's not our nature. They have tricked us. And if people are spewing out this hate, which I see rising up, I pray for them. I do pray for them because they have been tricked. Okay, they have been chained. They're chained. They're caught. Okay, and that's what we have to realize. That we're all one family here. We are all the people of the Mother Earth here. We are all the sacred children of this earth. Many have been tricked. Many fell for this trick. Many are chained. Many are lost. I pray for them. That's what I do.
Aho. Bruce Lipton has a really good quote that I'd like to share with everybody. It's talking about exactly what we're talking about now. He says, through consciousness, our minds have the power to change our planet and ourselves. It's time we heed the wisdom of the ancient indigenous people of the world and channel our consciousness and spirit to tend the garden and not destroy it.
Yes. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is that scientists today are finally catching up. A lot of them are catching up.
After their studies.
I mean, they're awakening too. They're saying things like, trees have feeling, plants have feeling. Well, I did a study and I did it over and over and over 50,000 times like I'm supposed to, because according to law and the authorities, to prove that trees have feelings, plants have feelings, they have emotions and they're intelligent. Wow, that all of creation has an intelligence. Like, the mycelia beneath the Mother Earth is a communicator and intelligence and functions on that level. Trees, the same thing, they communicate. They talk to each other. Wow. Well, guess what? There's many of us that already knew that, already knew that. Now,
like 10,000 years ago, yeah.
10,000 years ago, the next level is, scientists are finally saying, wait, guess what? We're made up of trillions and trillions of cells, and there's a frequency within every one of those cells. And we have a mind that basically whatever speaks to our body, the cells respond either positively or negatively. So if you're told and I talked about this, if you're told by a doctor, I'm sorry, you have 6 months to live, the majority of those people, the percentage of those people go home and die because they believe that doctor. And their cells and the cells within the body and the immune system reacts to what you say to it. That's the brainwashing. This is what's going on. And they say we are in relationship and communication through frequencies. We can actually communicate with each other telepathically. Wow. So you're not such a wackadoodle anymore, are you? You're not such a conspiracy nutcase, are you? I left my body. I went into the light. Now I had a near-death experience. Thousands and thousands and thousands of people around the world talking like this. And what do the scientists say? That's just that the brain just lacked oxygen, so they're hallucinating. Well, now they're kind of leaning in the other direction. They're like kind of looking at this. It's a big leap for them to think that when the body goes, we actually travel on, that we are spirit, that we actually have a source, that we actually have this, waiting, this journey, this amazing place, this source, which where nothing exists that you experience here on Earth. It's very different. There's no fear. There's no doubt. There's no guilt. There's no frustration. There's no memory. There's no regret. None of that doesn't exist there because it's the spirit. The spirit is pure and it's source, one with source. So the scientists are slowly catching up, but I have to say that if they had long ago approached some of the native elders, some of the indigenous peoples, and asked them questions, they would have found this stuff out long before. Now, maybe it would have made a difference. I don't know.
Well, they're sure out to destroy everything. And in the time that I have to say something before we go,
yes,
I'm going to say it now. I don't like to use the word white, but there's a phenomenal prayer that I always keep, and sometimes I have it as a wallpaper. It says, "Prayer for the white man," and Barb, you know it. And now, grandfather, I ask you to bless the white man. Think of white man as the people who are asleep. Okay, he needs your wisdom, your guidance. You see, for so long he's tried to destroy my people, and only feels comfortable when given power. So please bless him or bless them. Show them peace that we understand. Teach them humility, for I fear that someday they will destroy themselves and their own children, as they have done so for with Mother Earth. I plead, I cry. After all, they are my brothers.
Beautiful. That's
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, that's why we say Mitakuye Oyasin, which means we are all related. And that means we're related not just with the other human people here, but with everything, but mostly with the human people. And if you follow that, if you use those words, well, we're all related, we're one big family, Mitakuye Oyasin, you cannot eliminate. You can't be so arrogant to say, but not that person over there. Okay? Because then you're speaking with forked tongue. I'm just saying. That's how that is. But I'm going to also ask everybody here, thank you so much, you guys. Lizzie and Grizz, I think, are coming up next after we're going to finish up here. And I know it's really very important to listen to what they have to say. They share a lot of important information from their heart spirits. And definitely what we're talking about always, every one of us, is the love and the frequency of love and compassion and joy. And I throw in a bit the word tenderness because I've experienced tenderness from the Great Spirit and the Mother. I've experienced tenderness, that sense of a tenderness coming to me because the love is so profound. I was in a place a couple of years ago. I was praying, lit the sage, the bowl and sage I'm holding, and I'm just crying because of the children. A couple of things that I became aware of. Of course, it's not stopped, it's just continuing, but still in all, we don't know ultimately what is going on in that little spirit's life when we pray, because I do believe in prayer. But I want to say that I was praying to the Holy Mother Mary, which I hadn't prayed to in many years, but I know when I was a child I was told by those wackadoodle nuns that she loved the children. So I was praying to her, crying, asking her to protect the children. And the tears were rolling, and then this brilliant light outside. It was dark out, and in the dark outside in the back, there's no lights around, there's no houses around, there's nothing there. This huge explosive flash of light appeared, like, whew, and then it disappeared. And I knew that she answered me. I knew that my prayers were heard, you see. And that was beautiful. I've had these wonderful things like that. The response from the sacred ones to a heartfelt, real prayer. A prayer where you are humbled and maybe down on your knees because you have such love for the children or the mother or the waters, the water creatures and life, These are prayers. This is a real prayer. This is relationship. That's how you make a relationship, you see. So, yeah, I just wanted to share that because I do believe in prayer, and I have experienced many, many miracles through prayer, and I know I'm not the only one, and I know that we are all powerful out here. You guys out here on the chat and everybody listening, we have a power that is unprecedented if we align ourselves with that love, with that vibrational frequency of love that the Creator, Mother, and Father has for this creation. You just have to look at creation. You have to look outside and see how awesomely beautiful and miraculous this creation is. You have to say, well, who did that? They had to have had such love and joy while they were creating, okay, that intelligence, that omniscience, that frequency of love of the creation. This is what I'm looking at. So I'm just saying, so you guys, we have a power and we're being asked to utilize it now in this timeline, this prophetic time that we are living. It's an awesome time. And I believe that the light and love and compassion is so much more powerful than the other stuff, okay? And that other stuff, okay, is attempting to prevent us from loving and our light from shining, from us spreading our wings and flying. That's what I feel. So, let's all get on that love train, I guess I want to say, and shine your light. Choose to be compassionate. Choose to be kind. That's our free will at work right there. We have free choice, free will, and you guys are awesome and significant. That's why you're here. So, yeah, that's what I'm going to say right now. Luca, you want to just say one last word, and we're going to sign off. And I want to thank everybody. Doksha.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody too, and it's good to feel everybody in the chat that was talking to us today and communicating with us. And I might be getting my show back on. I'm not sure yet, but we'll have to see how things go. And it's good to know. And thank you very much for everybody that did say that they do like the show that I had and that they miss it and they want me to come back. And good luck to Lizzie and her compatriot or her better half or
Riz.
yes. And it's really good to be back. And Barb, I can't underline enough the work that you and Patty are doing, in your regard, in your subject. And it really, it's an honor to be with you. That's all I can say. It's an honor.
Well, it's wonderful that you're here and you're back. I really appreciate it as well. It was a great show because of you. Thank you. And we'll see you guys next week. And lots of love and numerous blessings coming your way. Open those arms in your heart and receive them, because I'm sending them, whether you want them or not. Okay, Doksha.
Bye.
Bye.